My life shattered unexpectedly one ordinary morning. The soft glow of dawn crept through the window drapes, and the lingering throb of a persistent headache pushed me from my bed. I staggered to the bathroom, swallowing two pain relievers and leaning against the vanity, hoping my unsettled stomach would calm. I'm Ron Jameson, and a single day had completely upended my existence. After a taxing day at work, I entered our house, oblivious to the emotional devastation awaiting me. Chrissy, my spouse, gazed at me with a mix of affection and sorrow. She confessed her involvement with another man over the past year. She described their bond as a crucial support for him, a man devastated by a vehicle collision that took his wife's life, though he emerged unharmed. Chrissy detailed her efforts to mend his broken spirit, how their bond deepened into affection, and eventually, physical intimacy. She swore her feelings for me hadn't changed, and promised her return once this man no longer required her. She pledged to remain present for our kids and me, balancing her time between our household and her commitment to this individual, whom she believed would eventually move on. Her admission felt like a sudden blow. In my stunned state, I lashed out, using harsh words in a futile attempt to comprehend the betrayal. Chrissy's reply was sharp. She accused me of failing to genuinely care for and support her, throwing our marriage vows back at me. She argued that if I loved her, I would accept this situation, no matter how painful. The conversation left me wrestling with a whirlwind of feelings, questioning everything I once believed about devotion, fidelity, and matrimony. Chrissy was clearly displeased and angered by me. I was furious, and to prevent striking her, I began drinking and shouting. Once I had somewhat composed myself, I asked how she would feel if I discovered another woman who desired me. Chrissy scoffed. "You're an overweight, middle-aged man with thinning hair." She warned that if I attempted to divorce her, she'd ruin my life. I was enraged and unsure what to do. My mind was in complete disarray, unable to think clearly. I continued drinking and yelling at Chrissy. She packed a suitcase and declared, "I'm leaving to be with my lover until you calm down and accept the circumstances." I don't recall much after that. Sitting on our bed, I decided to assess my situation. Chrissy was right. I was middle-aged, my hair was receding, and I carried an extra 20 pounds. I couldn't alter my age, but I could address my hair and weight. First, I needed to locate my children. It was Saturday morning, so they should have been home. After searching the house, I realized they weren't there. Where had Chrissy taken them? I was about to call her parents when I heard a car in the driveway. It was Chrissy's vehicle, and I saw our children stepping out. I met Chrissy at the entrance. "Good, you're sober," she snapped. "Where were the kids?" I inquired. "They were with me. I couldn't leave them with you." "You didn't take them to your lover's house, did you?" I hissed. "Ron, watch your language," she snapped again. "They were already there. My friend is kind, unlike you yesterday. I wouldn't dare leave them with you." "Fair point," I conceded. "But why didn't you take the kids to your parents' place?" "They weren't home," Chrissy stated as she headed upstairs. I followed her. "Are you here to stay, or are you returning to your lover?" "Oh, Ron, stop behaving like a child. I've told you how things will be. I won't debate it. The discussion is finished. Accept it or don't. Even though you're acting foolishly, I still care for you. When he no longer needs me, I'll be back full-time. So, what do we do now?" I struggled to remain calm. "Right now, I'm packing a few items to spend a couple of days with my friend until you cool down and accept the situation." "What about the children?" I hoped to shame her into remaining, but it had no effect. "If you don't want to watch them, call my parents. They will." Chrissy packed another bag and departed, leaving my mind on the verge of exploding. However, I knew I had to maintain my composure for the kids. I wasn't going to passively endure Chrissy's affair. No man with self-respect would. After Chrissy left, I checked on the kids and asked if they had any schoolwork. They all groaned, but agreed to begin when I promised we'd visit their grandparents, Chrissy's parents, afterward. The kids adored going there because Pop helped them construct go-karts. Chrissy's parents, Sam and Mary, lived on a small farm nearby. Sam, a retired tinkerer, had a spacious workshop where they worked on the go-karts. Sometimes I'd assist too, being a certified mechanic at the local Ford dealership. I wanted to speak with Chrissy's parents to see if they knew about her boyfriend and get their counsel. I had always enjoyed an excellent relationship with them and viewed them as my substitute parents since mine resided far away. However, I worried they might side with Chrissy. I confirmed the kids were doing their homework, and it struck me how much they meant to me. Ron Jr., the eldest at 16, was a football player but not large enough for a college scholarship. Sally, 15, was a typical teenager and an outstanding student. Kyle, the youngest at 11, was a joyous surprise and a cheerful, carefree child. While the kids worked, I made coffee and started a to-do list. I called my boss, Bob Clarkson, to inform him of my predicament. I had worked at the dealership since its inception 23 years prior, and Bob had been my manager for 15 years. He was understanding, having witnessed his son navigate a messy divorce where his ex-wife made false accusations against him. "Damn," I muttered. "She's a cold-hearted woman." "Tell me about it," Bob replied bitterly. For a week, we anticipated the police arresting Gary. These allegations are devastating and hard to refute. The police become apprehensive whenever a woman accuses a man. The only thing that saved Gary was his ex-mother-in-law. When Carol informed her mother that Gary mistreated her granddaughter, she thought it would destroy him. Bev, known for being stern but just, immediately took her granddaughter to the doctor to ascertain if she had been abused. The doctor confirmed she had not. Bev went to the police and threatened to testify against her daughter if they pursued charges. She also warned Carol that she would expose her drug issues, leading to her losing custody. "God bless Bev," I exclaimed, shocked at what women could do to get their way. "Amen to that," Bob responded. "If there's anything I can do to assist you, let me know. If it's within my power, I'll make it happen." I requested the following week off, utilizing my personal days and vacation time. Bob agreed and even offered more time if required. "There's something else," I stated. "I need a competent divorce attorney." "That's simple," Bob said. "Use the lawyer my son employed. He thoroughly defeated Carol. Gary gained primary custody, kept the house, and Carol has to pay child support. His name is Dwight Tucker. I believe I have his number." The messier my son's divorce became, the more I heard Tucker's name in my sleep. Bob located Dwight Tucker's card after about a minute. I called his office, not expecting anyone to answer on a Saturday, but luck was on my side. Not only was Mr. Tucker there, but his secretary informed me he had a cancellation and could see me if I arrived in 30 minutes. I told the kids I needed to go out for an hour and to behave. I drove to Mr. Tucker's office and arrived in 20 minutes. Dwight Tucker, an attractive man in his earlier mid-30s with deep blue eyes and a welcoming smile, greeted me. I was certain he impressed female jurors. "What can I do for you today?" Dwight asked as I took a seat. "My wife informed me yesterday she's having an affair with a younger man," I said, feeling embarrassed and angry. I recounted the events of the previous day. Dwight took notes, shaking his head when I mentioned my wife claimed to still care for me, but intended to continue seeing the man. He paused me. "Let me understand this clearly," Dwight said, his eyes darkening. "Your wife states she loves you but will keep seeing this individual." Embarrassed, I nodded. "Okay, proceed," Dwight prompted. I explained that Chrissy became angry when I refused to accept her arrangement. I admitted I called her a hussy and a prostitute. I painfully recounted how Chrissy chuckled when I asked how she'd feel if I found another woman. She belittled me, saying no woman would desire me, and promised to ruin me if I attempted a divorce. "She actually said all that?" Dwight asked incredulously. "No offense, Mr. Fremont, but your wife is either exceedingly callous or has serious mental instability." "None taken," I sighed. "I think the same." I then told him how she left the children at her lover's house during our dispute, and they spent the night there. Dwight's head snapped up, and he smiled before jotting something down. "Now for the million-dollar question. What do you wish to do?" Dwight asked, pressing his fingertips together. "I cannot live with this situation," I replied after a moment. "I don't know if I can move past this, but I don't want to be destroyed in a divorce or lose my children." Dwight nodded sympathetically. "That's common with women facing divorce due to their poor conduct, but I'll strive diligently to minimize any harm she can inflict. You'll receive at least 50% of your shared assets. However, the courts don't consider infidelity, so you might have to pay spousal and child support." I felt deflated despite Dwight's reassurance. It seemed I would be completely fleeced. "Yes, it's possible, but that's why we need to act swiftly," Dwight said, reviewing his notes. "Your wife has abandoned the marital residence and left your children at her lover's dwelling, which is a major transgression in some courts. You currently have custody, and we can try to maintain it that way. I'll seek an emergency protective order against your wife, permitting you to remain in the house temporarily. The longer you stay, the stronger your argument for primary custody. Does your wife work? Yes. Part-time at the hospital on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I answered, then added, that's probably where she met this guy. Dwight agreed and asked her earnings. I said about $25,000 a year, while I earned about $80,000. I must ask a vital question, and I want you to consider it carefully, Dwight said, looking directly at me. Do you still care for her? Do you wish to try to resolve things? I gazed at the floor for a long period. When I looked up, tears streamed down my face. I do love her, but I cannot accept this situation. She humiliated me and violated her vows. I just want a divorce. Last question, Dwight said, turning to a fresh sheet of paper. Tell me about your assets. I quickly reviewed our assets and explained we had about $3,500 in checking, $40,000 in savings, and a $20,000 certificate of deposit. I had roughly $150,000 in my 401k, while Chrissy had slightly less in her retirement plan from her full-time position at the hospital. Despite the hospital's generally superior benefits, my company provided a better healthcare plan, which we utilized. We also owned 2 cars registered in both our names and a house with minimal equity as we maximized the loan when we purchased it a few years ago. Here's what I want you to do, Dwight said, appearing ready for battle. Withdraw half of the savings, checking, and CD amounts and place it in a separate account solely in your name. I can't access the CD without Chrissy's signature, I explained. No problem, Dwight said, calculating. Take $3,750 from savings. Pay as many household bills as you can from checking, cancel joint credit cards, and acquire a new one only in your name. I still possess a credit card from before we were married, I said. I don't use it much because our joint card offers cash back. Even better, Dwight smiled. You won't need a new card. Dwight wrote a list of instructions and handed it to me. Go to my secretary and have her contact Taylor Locksmith to change your house locks. Then return, and we'll review the next steps. Miss Carlson quickly reached Taylor Locksmith by phone. They stated they would arrive around noon. I returned to Dwight's office as he concluded a call. We're fortunate, he said. If I fax my paperwork today, we'll get Judge Johnson. Why is that lucky? I asked. He dislikes cheaters. Dwight smiled. He's an old-fashioned, conservative judge who despises infidelity. This works in our favor. If he weren't available, I would have had to exert more effort. But Judge Johnson was a friend of my father's. He won't mind if I call him at home. Dwight stood up and extended his hand. I shook it gratefully. Before you head home, Dwight instructed, go take care of your banking matters. I'm preparing a petition for an emergency protective order against your wife. She won't be permitted in your house or within 500 feet of you or your children. Since she's with her lover and left your kids there, that should assist with the order. It might be overturned later, but by then, you'll be established as the primary caregiver. By Friday, I'll have her served with divorce papers. Then we'll observe her reaction. For the first time since Chrissy dropped her bombshell, I felt like I was regaining control. The bank wasn't busy, so I quickly obtained a cashier's check for my portion of the funds and closed our joint credit card, paying off its $537 balance from the checking account. I also paid the mortgage 2 months in advance, which consumed another $2,600. With the cashier's check in hand, I went to another bank and opened accounts solely in my name. When I arrived home, the kids were watching television. I loaded them into the car and drove to my in-laws. Sam waved from his workshop as the kids ran to him. Inside, Mary greeted me with a kiss. A minute later, Sam joined us. I have something difficult to share, I began. Chrissy is having an affair, and I'm initiating divorce proceedings. I don't believe you, Sam said sharply. What evidence do you possess? She told me. I replied softly, tears tracing paths down my face. Just then, the children entered. Please stay outside for a few minutes, I told them. Why, Ron? Ron Jr. asked. Because I said so, I responded more sharply than intended. Ron Jr. saw my tears and immediately guided his siblings back outside. She told you? Mary asked in disbelief. Yes, I affirmed firmly. I recounted the previous evening, including Chrissy's threats and insults. They were shocked, and Sam was enraged. I still don't believe it. I'm going to call her and put it on speakerphone. Sam dialed Chrissy and placed the phone on the coffee table. Hey, Daddy, Chrissy answered brightly. What can I do for you? Ron is here, Sam said. Are you having an affair? After a long pause, Chrissy demanded. What did he say? He said you're engaging in intimacy with another man and that you love him. It's complicated, Daddy, she pleaded. I'm trying to assist this man who endured a terrible tragedy. Sam's face turned scarlet. Are you engaging in intimacy with him or not? We've had intimacy, but I still love Ron. I can't abandon this man right now. I love him too. I was stunned. Chrissy had always been a daddy's girl, and I assumed Sam would offer excuses for her. Chrissy, Sam's voice was strained. I never imagined my daughter would become an immoral woman. Daddy, please, Chrissy pleaded, but Sam hung up. Moments later, the phone rang again. Mary moved to answer it. Leave it alone, Sam commanded, but Mary picked it up anyway. Sam snatched the phone from her hand and hurled it against the fireplace. I said, leave it alone, he screamed. She was stunned by her husband's fury and recoiled. I was equally shocked. Silence filled the room as Sam and Mary processed the news. Finally, Sam embraced me. Ron, I am so truly sorry. I can't believe our daughter did this to you. We will help you in any way we can. Mary will speak to her later and let you know how it goes. Right now, I'm too angry to talk with her. I had to depart to meet the locksmith. After herding the kids into the car, I hugged Sam and Mary and invited them for dinner to discuss further. On the way home, Sally burst into tears. Are you and Mom getting a divorce? Where did you hear that? I asked. From me, Ron Jr. said defiantly. I snuck back in and listened. I sighed, realizing they deserved to know. But how to tell them without causing too much harm? Damn, Chrissy, she hadn't considered the children when she was with her new man. Yes, it appears your mother and I will be divorcing, I said softly. But why? Kyle cried. Your mother has fallen in love with another man, I explained. You mean she's engaging in intimacy with another man? Sally said through tears. I despise her. She's a complete witch. Sally, don't say that about your mother, I admonished, though I felt the same way. The locks were changed just in time. 10 minutes later, Chrissy came storming into the driveway. You told my parents, didn't you? I'm sure you called me a hussy and a prostitute, Chrissy screamed. I thought you loved me. Chrissy, I said sadly, I love you with all my heart, but I won't accept you being with another man. You hurt me deeply when you called me an ugly, middle-aged guy that no other woman would want. Your pity, love, I can do without. You also threatened to ruin me. How can you claim to love me if you truly believe what you're doing is right? It should matter that your parents know. Chrissy looked devastated. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean those things, she tried to apologize. I was just angry because you called me a hussy and a prostitute. You promised to love, honor, and cherish me. Shame on you. If you loved me, you'd accept the situation. I'm not leaving you for him. I just love him too, and I'm trying to help him. He's younger and will eventually move on. Chrissy, I said, shaking my head, if you're going to quote our vows, remember you promised to forsake all others. A married woman doesn't sleep with young men just because they're hurting. I've accepted that you are damaged goods, and I don't want you in my life anymore. Accept it or don't. That's your decision. Chrissy turned red and seemed uncertain, but then her eyes narrowed with renewed arrogance. She was breathing hard, clearly attempting to formulate her next argument. At that moment, I wished I didn't love her, but I still did, deeply. Ron, Chrissy said in a tone she used with the children, stop being foolish. I'm your wife. I love you, and I will return to you when this man is well again. I was so sad, but my affection for her had transformed into pure animosity. No, Chrissy, I don't know you. My wife was loving and loyal. You, I don't recognize. For all I know, this is just one of many affairs. I can't trust you anymore. Chrissy's face flushed with anger. This is not an affair, and he's the first person I've been with since we married. He's hurting, and I will help him, whether you agree or not. Suit yourself. I don't accept this. I don't trust you, so I will have a DNA test done on the children to ensure they are mine. You are a complete jerk. Chrissy spat. This is going to become very ugly. Remember what I told you would occur if you attempt to divorce me. I'd rather perish in poverty than be with a woman devoid of morals, I said, looking down at her. She seemed oblivious to the repercussions heading her way. At that moment, a sheriff's vehicle pulled up. The deputy approached Chrissy. "Are you Chrissy Jameson?" he asked. "Yes," Chrissy responded, confused. "Ma'am, this is a protective order. You cannot enter the house and must maintain a 500-foot distance. Do you understand?" "But that's my home," Chrissy sputtered. "All my belongings are inside. You have 15 minutes to collect your items," the deputy stated. I nodded in agreement. "I'll take my children to the backyard," I said. "I want to see my children," Chrissy said frantically. "Ma'am," the deputy said, "the protective order is to shield your children from you." Chrissy turned to me, furious. "You did this. You're taking my children away." "No, Chrissy, you did this," I said calmly. "You abandoned our house and left our children unsupervised at your lover's place." "I didn't abandon our house, and he's a wonderful man," Chrissy screamed. "I'm helping him by sleeping with him. If he's so wonderful, go live with him and give him your affection. Or does he just want to use you for cheap pleasure?" I responded. More for the deputy's benefit than Chrissy's. I took the kids to the backyard and informed them their mother was gathering her things to take to her new man's house, but I would let them see her before she left. When I brought them out front, Kyle was crying hard and rushed into his mother's arms, pleading with her not to leave. "Please, Ron," Chrissy sobbed. "Can't you see what you're doing to the children?" Anger flared within me, but I suppressed it. "Don't talk about the kids. I haven't done anything to them. You took them to your lover's house while you were with him." "Ron, why can't you grasp that I can't abandon him?" Chrissy said, weeping. "Chrissy, you already abandoned your husband, your kids, and your home. It's time we did the same to you. You didn't consider the repercussions of your actions, and now you're facing them." Ron Jr. asked why. Chrissy tried to explain to her son, but it was clear he didn't believe her. Sally, however, let her mother have it. "You're nothing but a selfish witch," she said, spitting on her mother's face. I had to restrain Sally to prevent her from striking Chrissy and demanded she apologize, but she refused. Chrissy was caught off guard and collapsed to the ground, sobbing. Sally and Chrissy had been clashing recently, which I attributed to typical teenage rebellion. Now I feared Chrissy had permanently damaged their relationship. As I held Sally, Chrissy got up, ran to her car, and drove away, pounding the steering wheel. Kyle tried to run after her, screaming, "Mommy, please don't leave us." Ron Jr. caught him and brought him back. The deputy looked at me sadly. "Mr. Jameson, I am truly sorry for what you're enduring." That night, Sam and Mary came over for dinner. I had planned to barbecue burgers, but Mary took over the kitchen and prepared meatloaf and her renowned macaroni and cheese, which the kids loved. While Mary cooked, Sam and I shared a couple of beers in the living room. He was clearly distressed over his daughter's actions. I explained the protective order and how Chrissy had left the children unsupervised at her lover's place, which saddened Sam even more. "Mary spoke to Chrissy about an hour after you left," Sam said finally. "How did that go?" I inquired. "Terrible," Sam admitted. "Mary tried to reason with Chrissy, but she's convinced she's correct, and we're all mistaken. She believes we're awful people." Mary became truly angry and told Chrissy not to call us anymore and that she would testify against her if it proceeded to court. As you can imagine, the meal was very subdued. The only bright spot was when Sam invited the kids over to work on their go-karts the next day, which brought smiles to Ron Jr. and Kyle. Sally, however, sat with an annoyed expression and didn't eat. I let it go, knowing she was hurting as much as I was. On Friday, Chrissy was served with divorce papers at the hospital. Friends there informed me she lost control, cursing at the process server and vowing to ruin me. She was sent home, or rather, to her lover's house. Chrissy retained a lawyer, Amber Wright, whom Dwight knew. He said she wasn't as skilled as she imagined. Amber attempted to revoke the protective order, but Judge Johnson only modified it, permitting Chrissy supervised visits at the house without her boyfriend present. He warned her that any violation would terminate her visitation rights. Chrissy was initially pleased, but her joy diminished when the judge ordered her to pay child support, compelling her to return to full-time work. Despite her outburst at the hospital, they would likely rehire her due to the nursing shortage and her abilities. After the hearing, the DNA results arrived. It took me almost half a day to open the envelope. When I did, I was filled with joy. My children were truly mine. I reread the report several times to reassure myself. I realized I would cherish my children regardless of the results. Even if Chrissy left her lover and came home, I wouldn't forgive her. She was a detrimental influence and needed to be kept away from the kids. I used all my personal days and vacation time to stay with the kids. When that ran out, Chrissy's parents assisted. Sam and Mary refused to communicate with Chrissy until she regained her senses. After a week of multiple daily calls, Sam blocked her number. The visitation schedule was left for Chrissy and me to determine, which meant our attorneys conveyed our desires. We agreed that Chrissy could visit on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday between 6 and 7 in the evening. Mary volunteered to supervise, but I insisted on being there for the initial visit to establish clear boundaries. On the first Monday, Chrissy arrived in a car I didn't recognize, likely her lover's. She approached the house nervously and smiled hesitantly. "Hello, Ron. How are you?" "Mother, it's good to see you." "Chrissy, you must leave," I snapped. "The judge stated your lover cannot be within 500 feet of this house." Horror spread across her face. But he was just dropping me off. "Are you oblivious?" I was furious. The judge was explicit. "No lover here. Tell him to depart now, and I won't inform the judge." Chrissy nodded quickly and returned to the car. I walked out and noted the license plate number, then went back to the porch as the car drove off. "Okay, he'll pick me up later," Chrissy said defiantly. "Tell him to meet you down the street. I don't want him near the house." Chrissy's face filled with anger. "Ron, I'm weary of how you're treating me. You didn't have to take money from our checking account or cancel my credit card." "Chrissy, I didn't take anything. The funds were used to pay off the credit card and make 2 mortgage payments. I wanted to ensure the kids had a place to reside while we resolved matters. As for canceling the credit card, I didn't want to be burdened with any expenses you might incur while with your lover." Chrissy's face flushed with anger and arrogance. "This is not an affair, and he isn't my lover. You're being a complete jerk." Before I could respond, Mary stepped forward and slapped Chrissy across the face. Both Chrissy and I were stunned as she recoiled, bewildered, staring at her mother. "Chrissy, if you ever disrespect Ron again, I will tear that dress off you and slap your backside red. If you wish to see the children, go into the living room. I'll speak to Ron first, and then join you. Be warned, if you say or do anything wrong, I will expel you from this house." Chrissy nodded meekly and went inside. "Ron, I apologize for my thoughtless daughter," Mary said sympathetically. "Thanks for defending me," I said gratefully, and then I departed. 2 weeks later, the protective order was lifted, as Dwight had mentioned. By then, I was established as the primary caregiver and permitted to remain in the house. Chrissy continued seeing her lover, so her child support obligations persisted. She could have unsupervised visits with the kids in public, but couldn't take them to her lover's house or have him present. After 4 months of delays, our initial court date to finalize the divorce arrived. Before the attorneys spoke, Judge Johnson asked if we had attended counseling. The attorneys admitted we hadn't, so the judge ordered 8 sessions of marital therapy. Neither Chrissy nor I objected. I thought they were a waste of time but didn't want to displease the judge. Chrissy seemed to believe she could persuade me or the therapist that her actions were justified. The first session with therapist Ann Patterson was as I anticipated. Chrissy spent most of the hour explaining that what she was doing was the Christian thing to do. Ann looked shocked by Chrissy's presumption. In the second week, Ann gently challenged Chrissy's assertions, asking if it would be fair if I started engaging in intimacy with another woman. I winced, expecting an attack on my masculinity, but this time it didn't occur. Chrissy didn't answer immediately, but I didn't care. During the protracted divorce, I initiated some changes. When the woman you cherish tells you you're inadequate, you want to prove her wrong. So, I underwent hair transplant surgery. It cost about $4,000, and I debated it, not wanting to face ridicule. But since I was still on vacation, I proceeded. My hair was buzz cut, then follicular units from the back were implanted in the front. I stayed home for the first week, telling the kids it was a minor medical procedure. After 10 days, I resembled my former self, and my hair grew longer each week. After healing, I began exercising and running. Initially, I could only run half a mile, but eventually, I could run 10. I also joined a gym and modified our meals to healthier options. The kids complained at first, missing fast food, cookies, ice cream, and pizza. I found enjoyable, nutritious recipes online, and while some didn't turn out perfectly, we laughed, discarded them, and made sandwiches. Cooking together became a family activity. Despite the agony from Chrissy's betrayal, I started feeling better about myself. On my first day back at work, I received an ego boost. The receptionist, Trudy, gave me a peculiar look but didn't tease me about my new hair. "Welcome back, Ron," she chirped. Then her eyes began scrutinizing me. "There's something different about you." I blushed slightly. "Oh, I've been on a diet. I've shed 18 pounds. I'm aiming to lose another 5. She laughed and nodded. "Well, it really suits you. If I weren't married, I'd be all over you. Thanks for the ego boost, but according to my wife, I'm just a middle-aged man with no romantic appeal. So much so, she's found herself a lover." I attempted to make a joke of it, but it fell flat. By now, everyone at the company knew about my situation. Storm clouds gathered in Trudy's eyes. "Chrissy is an imbecile. Either that or she's mentally unstable. You're a wonderful man, Ron, and many women would be thrilled to have you. Don't let Chrissy affect your self-worth." That was the best morale boost I'd received in months. Suddenly, I didn't feel like such a failure. I snapped back to the present when Anne asked my wife again, "Chrissy, how would you feel if Ron came home and informed you he was sleeping with another woman?" As I mentioned, I was anticipating Chrissy to attack my manhood, but she didn't. I did observe her watching me during our initial meeting. I suppose she could no longer claim that I had thinning hair and was overweight. That was another boost to my self-esteem. Anyway, I simply sat in my chair and waited, as Chrissy seemed to ponder what to say. She couldn't very well say that I couldn't have another woman if she had another man. "I guess if he was trying to help that woman overcome some tragedy," she said with arrogance, "I would be fine with it. What if he told you that he loved this woman and that the intimacy was very satisfying?" "Again, I would accept it," Chrissy insisted. "However, he would have to assure me that the children and I would be cared for." The session continued like that, with Anne trying to make Chrissy see that her stance was truly absurd, but Chrissy refused to yield. As I feared, these sessions were merely a waste of time. Chrissy was just going to use them to try to persuade me that she was right. That was never going to happen. And as it was, the initial shock of Chrissy's actions had begun to dissipate. It's a strange thing about affection. If it isn't cultivated, it starts to perish. By the third week, something had shifted. Chrissy entered the session much calmer and spoke little. Mostly, she just listened. Whatever had changed, it had somewhat unsettled Chrissy. Perhaps she wasn't as arrogant now, because Anne was calmly and compassionately challenging her premise at every turn. I also noticed Chrissy observing me when she thought I wouldn't perceive it. I continued to work out and lost a few more pounds. I'd even started doing a lot of yard work, which had given me a nice tan. A couple of months before the therapy sessions had been mandated, I made another alteration. I was becoming dissatisfied with my employment. Oh, I enjoyed repairing vehicles, and not just the engines. I derived immense satisfaction from performing bodywork. I'd been restoring vintage cars since I was 14 years old. I could do it all. Now I envisioned owning my own enterprise as a means to spend more time with my children. I discussed it with Sam, and he agreed to assist me. I wanted to establish my own workshop and commence building a business, but I couldn't simply resign from my job and do it. I lacked the capital to sustain us until the business took off. We'd starve before I could make it viable. However, since Sam's farm was also in an industrial zone, he agreed to let me start my business in his workshop. Actually, Sam's tinkering shop had once been a barn for horses that he had converted. There was ample space for Sam and me. If I established the business, Sam agreed to lease me a plot of land on the road to construct my own building. I spent time at work studying their setup. The dealership was fundamentally configured to manage a higher volume than I anticipated. They performed some bodywork at the dealership, but much of it was outsourced. With this in mind, I reduced what I needed in terms of tools and equipment. One thing for sure, I'd need to build a paint booth. Sam was not only agreeable to that, but actually helped me construct it. I utilized the savings I had freed from our joint accounts, plus a small loan from Sam, to fund the venture. I started part-time, mostly on weekends and evenings. It was enjoyable, and the children would often come out to watch or even help. I genuinely relished teaching Ron Jr. how to do things. Even Sally got her hands dirty and loved to tell her friends how she helped replace an engine or assist in painting a Corvette. That also made her more appealing to the boys at school. I gained business through word of mouth, and soon I wondered if I shouldn't venture out full-time. That decision actually came to a head when I was informed they needed me to work over the weekend to catch up on some overdue tasks. I couldn't do it because I had my own clients to attend to. I presumed I was going to be dismissed when I went in to tell Bob that I couldn't work due to my own business commitments. "Got a minute, Bob?" I asked, peeking into his office. "Sure, Ron." He waved me in. "I'm pleased you're working this weekend. We have 44 cars arriving on Friday that need thorough inspection and preparation. We must get them out by month's end." I winced slightly at that. Most people don't realize that manufacturers offer special incentives to dealerships. If they sell a certain number of cars in a month, they receive a discount off the invoice. For example, the factory might say, "If you sell 300 vehicles this month, we'll deduct $150 off your cost." That's a $4,500 saving. But if the dealership sells only 299, they get nothing. This was crucial for the dealership. "That's just it, Bob," I said, feeling sweat trickle down my back. "I can't work this weekend. I've sort of started my own business on weekends, and I have obligations." "I'm sorry, Ron," Bob said curtly, "but if you can't work this weekend, I may have to let you go." "I understand, Bob," I said resignedly. "I just hope there are no hard feelings. I've been trying to establish my own business. I want to spend more time with my kids and earn some extra money for their college funds. I'll clear out my locker." "I hate to lose you, Ron," Bob said sadly. "Tell me about your business. Where are you located, and what kinds of jobs are you undertaking?" I explained that I had set up my operation on my father-in-law's property and described the equipment and tools I possessed. I was equipped to perform almost any kind of automotive repair, including bodywork. "Go get yourself a cup of coffee and then return here," Bob said, reaching for his phone. I didn't want any coffee, so I went to my locker and placed my belongings in a box. Losing this job meant it would be challenging for a while. The kids would have to be placed on Chrissy's health insurance plan, as I had removed her from mine. Still, I was confident I could succeed. I was declining almost as much business as I was accepting. Bob motioned me into his office when he saw me approaching down the hall. "I've got a proposition for you, Ron," he said excitedly. "If you work this weekend, we'll compensate you for any money you lose because your customers are displeased." "No." I shook my head. "I couldn't do that to my clients." "Hold on, I'm not finished," Bob said, sliding a piece of paper across the desk. "It was an independent contractor's agreement. I truly need you this weekend. I also believe you can persuade your customers to wait a few days. If you can do that and your shop passes our inspection, we'll hire you as an independent contractor to perform some of our bodywork." I was astonished but accepted the offer. After that weekend, I was primarily working full-time at my business. Occasionally, I would visit the dealership if they had an issue and I wasn't occupied. Also, Sam started helping me part-time, and Mary agreed to manage my books. I was now earning more money than I ever had working for the dealership. The only thing still problematic in my life was my marriage, and after the 4th counseling session, I wanted to end them. I was pretty much beyond caring what Chrissy was doing with her new affection. Oh, don't misunderstand. It still stung when I considered my wife being with another man, but I wasn't contemplating it as frequently. In our 5th session, I resolved to go on the offensive. I figured if I confronted Chrissy aggressively enough, she might choose to terminate these futile sessions. I decided to challenge her on the most hurtful things she had uttered, that I was too unappealing to attract another woman. When Anne asked if I had anything to state, I launched into Chrissy. "Chrissy, I've concluded that you're not only selfish but also very cruel. How dare you tell the man you supposedly love that he's an ugly, middle-aged man no woman would ever want? You wounded me in a way that I don't think I'll ever recover from." "Oh God, Ron, I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so ashamed I ever said that. If I could retract it, I would. I do care for you, just not enough to relinquish your lover. Keep your apologies to yourself. You'll require them more than I do," I snapped back. Chrissy burst into uncontrollable weeping. No matter what Anne or I said, we couldn't calm her. Eventually, Anne concluded the session, but assigned us homework to complete before the next one. I wasn't looking forward to it because I presumed these sessions were a complete waste of time. The homework involved answering a series of questions. Some made sense, like, how was our relationship with our parents? How was our intimate life? Some questions didn't make sense to me, like what my favorite food and drink were, or what kind of vehicle I drove. But one question truly made me pause and reflect. It was, If I could change one thing, what would it be? I had been working on the questionnaire the night after the last session, but put it aside after I read that question. I wanted to think about it for a bit. The next day, I finally wrote that I wished I had been a better husband so my wife wouldn't have ceased loving me. We submitted our papers at the next session, but Anne didn't even glance at them. Instead, she began by asking if we had any questions or if there was something we'd like to discuss. "I'd like to ask Chrissy a question," I said immediately. Anne nodded at me, and I turned to face my estranged wife. "Chrissy, I don't see that we're making any progress with these sessions. You've made it clear that you're not going to leave your friend, Bruce Hartman, and that leaves no possibility for reconciliation. Why don't we just stop this and finalize the divorce?" "How do you know his name?" Chrissy asked in shock. "That first time you came over to visit the kids, I obtained his license number. After that, it wasn't difficult to discover his name. But it doesn't really matter. I have no desire to retaliate against him or even speak to him. I just don't care anymore. I want to move on." Chrissy looked up at me with the most sorrowful eyes I think I'd ever seen. I disliked seeing her in pain, and I wanted to go over and embrace her, but I knew that wouldn't resolve anything, so I continued. "I know your lawyer hasn't been content with the settlement I've offered thus far. Well, I've instructed my attorney to propose some alternatives. I'm willing to grant you more visitation with the children. I'm also offering to pay you $1,000 a month in spousal support for 3 years. I just want you out at any cost." I watched Chrissy for a response, but all I perceived was profound sadness. She had made it perfectly evident that she wasn't going to stop seeing the man, and I couldn't and wouldn't accept my wife engaging in intimacy with another man. For the life of me, I just didn't comprehend how she could possibly think that I would tolerate a situation like that. At this juncture, it didn't matter. I just wanted out. I decided to push to end this charade. "I know that what you said about me was partially accurate. It did hurt immensely when you uttered it, and I did tell you that I didn't think I'd ever overcome that, but as time progresses, I realize that I am moving past it. Anyway, as you can see, I've tried to improve myself. I don't think that I'm the man you thought so little of when you became involved with Bruce. I've also started dating. After we're divorced, you can care for your gentleman friend for as long as you desire, but I think it's time to conclude this, if for no other reason than so you can begin to rebuild a relationship with your children." With that, Chrissy burst into tears and fled the room. Anne looked as stunned as I was. Finally, Anne composed herself and told me that she wanted to see Chrissy by herself for the next session, and then me alone for the last session. With a sigh, I agreed. When Chrissy unloaded all this on me, I was furious and filled with animosity. But now, months later, I was simply exhausted. I could see the suffering this whole ordeal was inflicting not only on me, Chrissy, her parents, and most of all our children. I wanted that to cease. I also was no longer furious that Chrissy was engaging in intimacy with some man. When I arrived for my final meeting with Anne, I was not only pleased that Chrissy wasn't there, but also glad that this would mark the conclusion of the counseling. "Ron, I want to commend you for your composure throughout all these sessions," Anne began. "I know this entire situation has been incredibly painful for you. After meeting with Chrissy last week, I think I finally understand what transpired with your wife." I was now sitting on the edge of my chair. Finally, perhaps I would discover why Chrissy chose to demolish our marriage. "Do you recall the homework I assigned you?" she asked. I simply nodded. I had forgotten about it and figured it had been of little value in these counseling sessions. "The way you both responded to one particular question surprised me," Anne said as she retrieved 2 pieces of paper from her folder. "The question was, if you could change one thing, what would it be? Do you remember that?" I nodded. "You answered that you wished you could have been a better husband so that your wife wouldn't have stopped loving you." When Chrissy heard that, she broke down and wept harder than ever. It took me quite a while to calm her. I didn't know what to think, say, or do, so I just sat there. "Ron, your wife never stopped loving you. Yeah, that's why she continues sleeping with Bruce, because she loved me so much," I said sarcastically. Anne gave me a disapproving look but then sighed. "Ron, what I discovered about Chrissy was that she was experiencing a severe midlife crisis. As the children were maturing, Chrissy felt her life slipping away from her. She is, and I suspect she has always been, a warm and compassionate individual. Somewhere along the line, she encountered Bruce, who desperately needed her. She confused her yearning to feel young again and Bruce's terrible need for forgiveness over his wife's passing for love. That doesn't alter anything, I protested. She's still sleeping with Bruce. Actually, no, she's not, Ron. Really. This was news to me. Then why didn't Chrissy tell me? Anne sighed. I know this isn't going to change your sentiments at this point, but you need to know the complete truth. Bruce departed town the same day you told Chrissy you were going to start dating and just wanted to proceed with the divorce. She believed she had already lost you. I considered it, but Anne was correct. It didn't significantly change my perspective. Too much had transpired to revert. I had my life in order now, and I wanted to move forward. I could never trust Chrissy again, and I didn't want to live like that. Most importantly, I wanted the children to begin reconnecting with their mother again. Sally's grades had plummeted drastically since this ordeal began, and she was still angry at her mother. Kyle had become sullen, withdrawn, and was misbehaving in school. This was perhaps the worst consequence of Chrissy's actions. Kyle was no longer the cheerful, giddy child he once was. Ron Jr. handled it the best. He wasn't angry or sullen, but whenever his mother's name arose, he changed the subject. Maybe I'm mistaken. Perhaps his reaction is worse than the two girls. I just don't know. One last thing, Ron, Anne said, pulling out the second piece of paper. This is Chrissy's response to the question about changing one thing. She wrote that if she could change one thing, it would be that she never met Bruce Hartman. The divorce proceeded, and as per the arrangement, Chrissy visited the children on Wednesdays and Fridays. I made sure to take the kids out on Fridays before Chrissy arrived. At first, our interactions were formal and uncomfortable, but then we started sharing meals together with the children, and one evening Chrissy asked if she could stay the night. No, I answered with a chuckle. The bed in the spare room isn't that comfortable. It's better if you return to your place, and next time, don't imagine I'd ever be alone with you. As for Bruce Hartman, his narrative wasn't entirely accurate. His wife died driving away from him after discovering his infidelity. She left in a rage, speeding, and perished in a car crash. Why did he leave town? I suppose it was because of a severe beating he received outside a local bar. 5 broken ribs, 1 shattered kneecap, 5 missing teeth, and 2 ruptured testicles. I had to call in a favor with some friends. It was worth it. The assault ensured he would never be with another woman, let alone please any. As for Chrissy, she gradually re-established a loving relationship with her children, or I should say, with Sally and Kyle. No matter what Chrissy did, there was always a distance between her and Ron Jr. I would have thought Sally would harbor resentment, but she was the first to fully embrace her mother's return. Chrissy finally mended her relationship with her parents, though like Ron Jr., there was a slight coolness with her father. Most Sundays we'd have dinner there like a family, but we weren't. Chrissy kept apologizing for everything that had occurred. I finally told her to please stop. I will never forgive you, and it's pointless to try, I told her. Oh, please, Chrissy, stop being so childish. I told you how things will be. I have no intention of debating it. The discussion is concluded. Accept it or don't. That's your choice. We are never getting back together again. Even if you were the last woman on the planet and the fate of humanity depended on me making love to you, I'd decline. 3 years later, I remarried. I married Sally's teacher. How we met and everything that happened is a tale for another occasion. But what matters is that the children love her and have welcomed her as part of the family. Chrissy still hasn't accepted that I've moved on. Well, I'm not going to do anything about her. After all, the discussion was over. She either accepts it or she doesn't.